Hello everybody, how's it going? It's Jackie Felix here, and it's another sunny and fine day in Hydel in Black Desert Online. And today I just want to make a new guide video on the 5 things every caster should know for large scale PvP. So by caster I mean witch and wizard obviously, and for large scale PvP I mean in Node Wars, Siege, GVGs and open world PvP. So before we get into that, I just want to make an announcement real quick. I will be giving out 4 closed beta keys for Elion, which is a new game Kakao is developing. It's very similar to Black Desert Online. It's a open world MMO, and it looks like a very interesting game. All you need to do is react to this this icon here, and it will enter you into the raffle, and after 24 hours the bot will select 4 winners, and I will DM those winners the keys for the closed beta test. The other thing I would like to announce is we made a new channel called the suggestions box in Discord, where you can give your feedback on what you would like to see next. For example, in my YouTube video content, what you would like to see me do or stream on Twitch, or if you have any suggestions that can help improve or make the Discord more interactive for you guys. Alright, let's get on with the video. So the first tip I have for casters is to have the optimal Node War settings. So I'll show you guys the settings I run, and I think it's important that people make sure there's having unnecessary or additional information on your screen lowers your performance during Node War and Siege, and BDO is a very CPU intensive game, so it's a very intensive game. What I recommend people run is, so I run a high texture quality, and the reason I do this is because having a higher texture quality will use more of your GPU than your CPU, so it kind of balances out between CPU and GPU. And then I have very low for graphics, and then pretty much everything else is kind of standard. Don't turn on auto frame optimization. Camera performance, make sure your camera vision range is set up to 100, so the maximum. You can see a difference here. If I set it to 0 to 100, you can see a lot more with 100 compared to having to set to 0, right? And in large scale, you want to see as much as possible on your screen. After that, you want to have all camera effects turned off. Unnecessary, annoying information again for large scale. For wars, you'll want to run in full screen, but usually I just run in full screen windowed. I have 1080p resolution. UI scaling, not as important, but if you set it really large, then your UI will be really big. I just have it to set to below, like a little bit below the minimum. I have crop mode activated. So what crop mode is like these, essentially, so you can see, I'll turn it up a little bit and crop your screen, right? So you can see more of your screen gets grayed out by 2 boxes on the top and bottom sections, right? And what this does is it makes it so your game renders less information, and it just helps improve performance. Okay, so after that I have effect opacity set up to 30. So this affects your effect opacity. So like if I do voltaic here, see I barely see anything. Set it to 100. I do it again here. See, it takes a lot more of my screen. Same with media. See how much of a screen takes up. So I like to set this to minimum so that I don't need to see unnecessary information on my screen again. And then I also recommend you have this option on, which removes other people's effects, since it can be really having a media land on you in Node Wall and Siege can block out half your screen. It's unnecessary information again, so turn that off. Turn that on, sorry, to remove other people's effects. I like the old style photo filter because it's not like the other photo filters. I feel like too vibrant and like they attack your eyes too much. So old style, I think it's a good balance between the vibrance and just it not being too bland in terms of the color selection. And yeah, so apart from that, you know, everything else is pretty standard. I have audio settings turned off. And the other thing is, if you're in Siege especially and there's a lot of people around you, you can choose to turn this off. The show guild clan member names, and what that does is that it hides other guild, like your guild members' names who are not in your own platoon, so you only see enemy players. So this will be useful if you're, for example, in a 200 or 300 man siege and you want to reduce as much information as possible. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my Node War and Siege optimal settings. The second thing I want to get through is pretty important. It's pretty easy. It's the shift up arrow key to increase your render range and also increase. So what it does is it moves your camera angle all the way up. And what this does essentially is it helps your range skills hit further. And also it helps you see further. And yeah, it's pretty advantageous to have this setting on. And some people don't realize this, but if you put yourself in a loading screen, so for example, if I go into Red Battlefield here, right? Leave the party. I go to Red Battlefield, and while I'm in the loading screen, I can do the setting which pans my camera up in the loading screen, right? So this will be useful, for example, you know, if you're in a Node War or Siege and you're respawning and you don't want to do it while you're respawned, right? And it's the same, you can pop your droughts as well while you do this. Sorry, I didn't do that quite correctly. Let me exit the RBF, I'll show you again. So you need to do it when the loading screen's pretty much almost finished. Just get out of the RBF here. And just show you. So it's being transported, give me a second. See here. It's loading screen. I'm out of loading screen, see I'm already panned all the way up. Now there's no way to keep this camera setting if you die or if you go in loading screen. You need to manually adjust it every single time. So that's just the way it is right now. Alright, cool. So the third piece of advice I have is, you know, for the more important battles, make sure you have a proper Elixir rotation setup. So for example, for myself right now, I'm running DR, so I don't need the Elixir, but essentially Elixir rotations are a lot more powerful or strong than normal drought, okay? They give you a lot more buffs. And how you want to do it is you want to set up the more expensive and rare elixirs at the top. For example, detection. So I have detection here as a party elixir, and then I'll have an offensive elixir, which is manhunt, and then I'll have a defensive or a defensive elixir, right? So first row, sharp detection, manhunt, steel defense. Second row, brutal carnage, concentration, and life. So it's like, you know, those party, offensive, and defensive, right? So party, offensive, defensive. And if you're running evasion, you can also include a helix elixir here. And apart from that, you can also include in this, so let me just find it real quick. There are also consumables, include the AP enhancers, and also the damage reducers, so you can include those in your elixir rotations. So I'll recommend you always have these kind of elixirs set up in case it's an important fight. And you should also be aware when to pop these Elixir Rotation, when not to. So for example, if your shot caller is going to call you to end on top of a base, or if you know you're going to die in less than a couple minutes, probably not worth it to pop these elixirs, since, you know, one Elixir Rotation could easily cost you 30 to 50 million silver. So it is very expensive. Okay, the fourth piece of advice I have is to make sure everything is set up properly before you go into Node War, right? A lot of people don't do this. What I mean by this, I mean making sure you know you have gotten all your important buffs. So that includes your house buffs, your church buffs, your crit buff. You know, making sure your armor is repaired, making sure you're yesed up for Node War, making sure that, you know, you have elixirs in your central marketplace, right? So, sorry, making sure you have HP, MP potions in your central marketplace, so you don't need to, for some reason, go back to down to buy them in the middle of PvP, right? So those are some pretty important things to check. Just do a checklist every time before war starts. Alright, the last piece of advice I have is to understand the Node War and Siege mechanics, right? You're doing Node War and Siege, and what I mean by this is, like, for example, understanding how flame towers and Hawachas work, understanding that flame towers will hit you out of super armor or front guard skills. It also does a decent amount of damage if it's enhanced. Hawacha is a ranged AoE projectile, which will also knock you out of front guards and super armors and do a lot of damage. But most of the time you should be able to see a Hawacha shot incoming and know how to avoid it. Understanding how elephants work and how, you know, flame towers counter elephants pretty hard, but if there are no flame towers alive, your base will get gutted pretty quickly. Understanding the importance of supply depots, so they allow you to buy structures, allow you to repair, and allow you to get your horses out. And recovery centers, which reduce the respawn time pretty much. So like if you have recovery centers, you'll respawn faster later in the And I think it's also, you know, really important to understand, you know, stun traps and flame traps, right? So stun traps, you place them on the ground and it will stun your enemy for 10 seconds. However, if you're in a super armor movement, so for example, if Musa Meiwa is in a Tiger Blade and dashing around, they can clear the stun traps. You can clear the stun traps with your horse as well. But if you do get hit in a stun trap, you're pretty much dead. Since it'll stun you for 10 seconds. I think the only way you can really get out of it is if you escape, or if you do V, right? And then flame trap, you place down flame trap. You should usually install 1 or 2 flame traps together, and this will knock people off their horse as they're riding over the flame trap, essentially. So you can place this on the road, or place this through a track where you know people will be riding their horses through, knock them down, and then kill their character as they're in the following out, right? And then there's also elephant traps, which trap the elephant and knock the rider off the elephant. Yeah. And the last thing I want to quickly talk about is cannons. You guys should also understand the importance of cannons in Node Wars and Siege. They're indeed a very important factor, especially against stronger guilds. But yeah. So these small elements you should always have a simple understanding of before you go deeply into Node Wars and Siege. And if you're unsure of something, maybe you should ask one of your guild officers, since I'm sure they have some knowledge in regards to these aspects, right? Alright, that's pretty much sums up the video. There's not much I want to go through, so just a quick recap. So the 5 things I believe every caster should know for large-scale PvP. This includes, you know, knowing what the optimal Node War settings are, knowing how to pan your camera up and how it works, and the benefits of doing so, making sure you have Elixir Rotation available for the more important fights, how to pre-buff and prepare for a Node War, before it starts is going through your checklist. And lastly, understanding the Node War and Siege mechanics. So if you guys found this video useful, please hit that like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate it. I am planning to do an overhaul of the YouTube channel and making it a lot more interactive, a lot more informative, and a lot more useful. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Apart from that, I will see you guys next time. Peace.